Okay, welcome everybody to our Astromapping workshop. We are recording this in January of 2023. It's a 7-year in numerology. It's a perfect year for spiritual self-study. And so this topic of astromapping is a really fun way to work with the frequency of the new year. And I'm so glad you're here. The people that are attending live, we've been kind of in a pre-chat mode. There's people from Alabama and Llano and Minnesota and Arizona and France and Canada and Lee's Summit, is it Missouri and Illinois. I mean, I'm just so impressed with our little Wise Skies family. Like I said, it feels like a Wise Skies family reunion, and I'm so excited to teach you guys today how to look at the most important transits of 2023 and how they affect you. Now, some of you guys have gotten readings from me that are very highly personalized. Okay, so I have gone into more details in those personalized readings. We're looking at this from a broader, here are 3 or 4 of the bigger transits and where you can find them in your chart. So you're learning how to look at your own chart today and kind of untangle some of the mysteries behind astrology. So I do have a PowerPoint for you guys. It's a presentation. I will send it to you so you don't have to furiously scribble down all of the dates. I'll give you the whole package. I'll send the video out in a replay. And I'm just gonna hit share my screen. Gonna go into the slideshow mode. Oh. And there we go. So that's me. If you're new to my work, welcome. If you're old to my work, thank you. I really appreciate your support. My Zoom etiquette basically is if you want to participate and you're able to have your camera on, please do. And if not, just know that that's fine. You don't have to have your camera on, but also know that this will be a public video. So don't take us anywhere private, right? We're going to go through the anatomy of your chart, what you're looking at when you're looking at your birth chart. We're going to talk specifically about Jupiter and Saturn, and we're then going to look at some of the retrogrades in 2023. The nodal shift, I think, is really important, especially this year, and I'm going to give you some eclipses, and then at the very end, I'm going to do some transits. These are specific dates to watch that I think are going to be very important. And then I'll do some hot takes. So we'll have a lot to get through. And it's really important that we spend enough time in the beginning so that you understand what we're looking at. Because if you don't have this like foundation in the beginning, the rest of it isn't going to make any sense at all. But I'm going to just really break it down into a practical way so that you feel really good. My housekeeping, like I said, if you're new to my work, welcome. This is through wiseskiescollective.com. Our sister company is Spellbound Publishers, and we created this awesome journal with the transits and themes of 2023. So this is one thing I would love to get in everybody's hands. We also have a digital astrology calendar that is super easy to use, very intro. It's friendly for all levels of astrology enthusiasts. You should have gotten a 101 video, like Astrology 101, in your confirmation emails. And so if you didn't, I will make sure to include that for you. And Wise Skies is a spiritual development company. So we offer astrology, human design, psychic development, mediumship, and tools to help you with your self-reflected consciousness so that you can really understand yourself and explore yourself. And so looking at your astrology chart today is one way. I wanted to point out that if you missed our astrology predictions panel with Celeste and Sarah, that it is available for replay in the shop. And Sarah just got elected to be one of the representatives of ESAR, which is one of the biggest astrology organizations in the world. And so you're in that workshop is really good. You're in good hands if you want to check out the replay. The basics of Astrology 101, what we need to understand before we're looking at our chart is that there's planets and they move through signs. And in your chart, there's houses. So I'm not going to go through the meaning of each of these because I did that in that free 101 video. Really what you need to understand is that the planets, you can consider them kind of like archetype energy. We tend to write about them and personify them in pop astrology, but think of it more of like an archetype of a teacher. And so I have these listed for you. I have this handout. I'm happy to also pop in the chat a little later. But the idea here is that you're looking for planets, and in your chart, they have signs, right? So these are the symbols of the planets. So the circle with the dot is the sun. The moon looks like the moon. The Mercury has the little thinking cap on, right? You know what Venus looks like. You know what Mars looks like. But they have a certain energy to them, right? And then we're also going to be looking for the signs. And this is the zodiac sign. Everybody, raise your hand if you're a Scorpio. I need to see all the Scorpios in their room. Because I am too, right? So I know what you're up to today. You're really digging deep into the mysteries, right? Okay, so and then there's houses. And so each chart, this is what a chart from astro.com looks like. This is my chart. And each chart is going to have 12 houses. So the most important thing that we can do right from the get-go is identify the houses. No matter what you're using, what platform you're using, you're going to have 12 houses. So this is the first house, this is the second house, this is the third house, this is the fourth house, right? And it always, in Western evolutionary astrology that I practice, it always goes in that order. There are many different kinds of astrology. We're just talking about what we do at Wise Skies. So the first house is always this slice of the pie. It's always on the left. And so this AC is your ascendant or your rising sign. So you guys see me as Jupiter rising, as Sag rising, as the party girl who can do fun stuff and create fun events. But really, I have all these 4 planets over here in Scorpio, and I'm actually much more intense than my persona is. So there's some fun things that you can learn about your birth chart. But number one, let me know in the chat, do you understand that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 12 houses. This is the first house. Does anybody have any question on where the houses are in their chart? Please let me know if you do. Each of the houses has 30 degrees. So 30 degrees, I'm opening the chat so I can see. Can you see when I open the chat on my screen? Like, can you see that I'm scrolling? Okay. All right. Everybody understands. Cool. Each of these houses have 30 degrees. So 30 times 12 makes 360, makes a whole wheel. There are some astrologers that will use a whole house. Sign isn't the right word. We don't use whole house at astrology at Wise Skies, but some of you might have the things on your chart that it's like house 1 is perfectly 1 through 30 of Sagittarius, and house 2 is perfectly 1 through 30 of Capricorn. But mine aren't like that, and that's why it doesn't quite match up. See how like that first house, like Sagittarius blends from my 12th house into my first house. So I'm not using whole house. You might be, and that's fine. This is still going to work for you. You don't have to do anything different. This is just my way of doing it. So if everybody's great with the houses, I'm so impressed. The next thing that we need to identify are the signs. And so the signs are on the wheel on the outside. These are the signs of the zodiac. They don't always go in, they don't always start at Aries, but some of you, they will start at Aries. So mine happens to start at Sagittarius, and they're going to go in the same exact order, right? So where's my Aries is over here. So Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. They're always going to go in that same order. If you watch Tarot Friday, I always go in that order, Aries through Pisces. They're in the order, but they're not going to be the same place on your wheel as they are on mine. So if you're like, oh my God, I don't have Sagittarius rising, that's correct. You probably don't. Some of you might. We would have a good time at brunch together, right? So we're good with the houses. You don't have to know the signs, but you need to understand that they're on the outside of the wheel for now. What we are not looking at in this workshop today are these planets. The planets that are inside, we don't care about that for the purposes of this workshop. Okay, so you don't have to freak out about where your planets are, or if they're in the right house or the wrong house, or how they're connected to each other. That's a whole other topic. Another topic is interceptions. And some of you might see that your two of your signs are kind of folded in within one house. That's called an interception. It doesn't matter for the purpose of this workshop. It does matter deeply. And if you want a whole nother deep dive on interceptions, we can talk about it. You just need to know where the sign is in what house. So I've got Sagittarius in my 12th and 1st house, right? I've got this sign that's straddling the 9th and 10th house. I'm going to give you the symbols as we go, so you don't have to be like, oh, I don't know the symbols. Okay. Thanks for the nod. Not looking at natal planets. It's helpful. Now, this is a birth chart. I prefer this technology for looking at my chart. So this is what I'm looking at when I'm reading for you guys too. This is very specific. It says 5 degrees of Sagittarius. I love that, right? I know that there's 30 degrees of Sagittarius. So I know that there's a few like 1 through 4 in my 12th house. And I know that 6 through 30 are in my 1st house. It's very clear for me. Sometimes things are all bunched in and it's like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in Scorpio that are actually all in my 12th house, but the software can't show you that. So the degrees help you see what house are your natal planets actually in. And I find that to be useful. This is a birth chart on the left side. A transit chart looks like this. This is my birth chart in the middle, and these are the planets in the sky right now. And so what I've done is I've looked at all of 2023 to help you find a couple of key points of places in the sky, and I'm going to show you how to look at that in terms of your chart. So when I'm doing a transit list, I'm looking at the whole year, like, all of the transits listed out. This is just a snapshot. This is also what we would do if we were looking at a partnership chart, or if we were looking at a parenting chart, or if we were looking at 2 people. You can flip them. So if this would be like, if we're looking at a relationship, how it affects me with me in the center. But if it's how it affects the other person, it would be the other person in the center. So little extra tidbits. The outer planets. So can we move forward into 2023? Is anybody nervous? Have any questions? Keisha has the same birthday as me. Awesome. Like the same 1980 and everything. And Helen is asking about a master app. So that chart that I use is from Astro Gold. So it's a $40 app. What I use. Anastasia, yours is the same as mine too. Okay. Feel like I know that I'm talking at a basic level, but we're at all different levels of astrology. So I appreciate your patience with your fellows here. So if we feel good, I'm going to move into 2023. The outer planets are what is changing. We've got Jupiter is moving from Aries into Taurus. Saturn is moving from Aquarius into Pisces. Jupiter in Taurus is exciting because it's the big one that is going to mean a good economy, a money upturn, good things for our wealth. Saturn from Aquarius into Pisces will be there 3-ish years. We're going to talk about these today. We're not going to talk about Pluto moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. It's a much longer time span. And the north nodes are changing. We're going to talk about those. The planets that stay the same, we're not going to work with those today, but Uranus will stay in Taurus and Neptune will stay in Pisces this year. So the first one we want to identify is, where is Aries in your chart? And where is Taurus? They're going to be neighbors, right? It goes Aries, Taurus. So Jupiter in the sky in 2023 is moving from Aries to Taurus in May. And so I want you to look, my video is blocking it, but can you see this symbol for Taurus I have on the right side? That circle with the horns is Taurus. So on the outside of your wheel, I want you to find Taurus and tell me what house Taurus is in the chat, a couple of you, so that I know that you're with me. What house is Taurus in? Oh yeah, you're on it. Okay, good. God, this is great, guys. Sophia's she's got it in the 7th. Duane has it in the 12th. Leisha has the 8th and the 9th. double your pleasure, Leisha. And then Rachel's in the 7th, Gina's in the 10th, Camden's in the 8th and 6th. Okay, you guys are on it. Perfect. You know what you're doing. Feels great. All right. So if we're looking at Jupiter, the planet of expansion and abundance and wealth, and the one that I joke about as being my fairy godmother in the skies, and my heritage is Jewish, so I usually say my Jewish fairy godmother in the skies, because culturally it's like Jupiter knows somebody for you. Jupiter's gonna network for you. You're not gonna leave without food and gifts and things, right? Like Jupiter expands. And so wherever Jupiter is in your chart in 2023 in Taurus, that's gonna give you a clue as to where you're gonna have extra luck, where you're gonna grow a little. And sometimes growing requires us to go outside of our comfort zone, right? The general themes of Jupiter and Taurus. Taurus rules the land and the earth. So I think that real estate, I feel like stuff going on with the earth is going to be very special and important and enhancing this year. Crystals, plants, right? Like look around, like I'm that kind of that Jupiter and Taurus vibe in my office too. So we want to look at sustainable long-term investments. Taurus is slow and steady. This isn't about erratic investments in something crazy, right? This is slow and steady. Sell high, pack light. Foreign food. Jupiter rules foreign affairs. So no matter where you are, right? Like Taurus loves food and the sensuality of food. So doing something, cooking something outside of your culture like this, these can be fun little themes to work with. Taurus rules beauty. And so this might be a year where your self-care is very much beauty oriented. Be careful about July though. Don't do a lot of changes in July. Very gold dust woman vibes. So you get the idea here. Taurus is very conservative. Now, Jupiter through the houses. So I have a really special article for you written by Wise Skies astrologer Sasha Boyle, and she helped identify some of these house themes for us today. So I want to say thank you to Sasha. If you haven't had a session with her yet, she's doing 2023 readings. She's who I go to. She blows my mind, and she looks at progression. She looks at all kinds of different timing techniques that I don't do. And so I highly recommend her. But if you're finding Taurus in your chart and you see that Jupiter's going to move there in May, you can go grab a quickie horoscope. Or you're like, okay, it's in my 7th house. I'm going to have some relationship growth. All right. It's going to be in my 2nd house. That's the money house. I'm going to probably have some increase of my wealth and my possessions and my material things. So we're just looking at the house themes, which you have in that handout. So Jupiter's in my 5th house. It's going to be more about pleasure and children and sex, right? If it's in my 10th house, that's when the spotlight is on me. And sometimes that's really, really good. And sometimes you don't want the spotlight on you. I've been watching the Madoff documentary. And I'm like, that guy probably didn't want the spotlight on him at certain times, right? Like they're at the part where he's getting audited and he's freaking out. And I need to go look if there's like a meme or joke about like his last name is really Madoff, like we made off with all that. I don't know. Is there a joke out there? It's new to me. My point is, there are times in your career where you're going to have a year where you're in the limelight, and that could be for better or worse, depending on how your life has gone, how you have, how your karmas are working themselves out, right? So that would be a 10th house thing. Now you're like, what the heck is going on with all of these little signs on the right? And you're freaking out about that. Like, what does that mean? So this is so pause here if you're a baby beginner, just pause. And if you are ready for a little bit more advanced technique in terms of writing the horoscope, what we do for example, an Aries, we would take the chart of the current times and we would rotate it so that Aries is in the 1st house. I showed you guys that Sag was in my 1st house, but we would show that Aries is in the 1st house. And if Aries is in the 1st house, that means Taurus is in the 2nd house, right? So if Taurus is in the 2nd house, this is the reading. This second house reading would be what we would write for an Aries sun sign. This is why horoscopes aren't super fun, because it's like, no, man, like your second house is different. You're, as an Aries, maybe you have Taurus in your second house, but it's what naturally rules your second house. It's why it kind of makes sense most of the time, but a personalized reading is going to do a lot better. I just wanted to show you that's how we write horoscopes. So we would continue to rotate the chart around. So when Taurus is rising in the first house, Jupiter and Taurus would be in the first house, and we would write to that. We would write about all of those themes. If we were trying to write the Gemini horoscope, we would rotate Gemini to be on the rising sign. And then Taurus would Taurus would scoot up into the 12th house. So we would write to a Gemini according to 12th house Jupiter and Taurus themes. That's an advanced topic. You don't have to worry about it if it doesn't make sense. One thing I want to point out before we go on is in my personal chart. So I've had Jupiter in my 4th house. So here's Jupiter in the skies. Here's my personal 4th house. It's been there for a little while. In the timing that Jupiter moved into my 4th house, which represents home and family and roots and things like this, I have moved. This is a new to me house. I have bought a camper. I have expanded my territory. I have gotten in the real estate game in terms of opening a miniature Airbnb with this camper. And so Jupiter has helped expand my footprint, expand my home and family, expand the place that I live. It's about to go in my 5th house. I'm pretty excited about that. But, you know, no matter where it is in your chart, you can plan for it, and you also don't have to. I wasn't like, Jupiter's moving in, I got to move. It just is naturally what happened. It's just naturally what I was in alignment with. On the more challenging side, you can see these planets that have been wrecking my 6th house. So last year, I was one of the most challenging years of health that I've had. And so the 6th house rules our health, our routine, our daily rhythm. I've got the planets of Uranus, right? This wrecking ball, lightning bolt energy coming through here. Mars and the North Node and Uranus were all right in my 6th house on top of my Chiron, my wounded healer. You know, I had a lot of triggering events this last year. And so one thing that astrology will show you is that this too shall pass. And now you can see when, you can see when. I wasn't destined to die this summer. The horary astrologers really scared me, but I think that we got past it. So I'm just trying to give you a personal example of, okay, there's Jupiter in my chart. So where is it in yours? Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. Camden's asking, can the expansion Jupiter brings be negative, like inflammatory? Yes, it can. It can be inflammatory. It can be inflated ego. It can be inflated personality. It can be overconfidence. It can be making mountains out of molehills. It can be putting too much on your plate. And my mentor says, honey, if it's on your plate, you ordered it. So, this expansion of Jupiter, it sounds great. But yes, Camden, it can't, everything is going to have a spectrum of interpretation. Gina's saying that my husband has Jupiter in his 4th and he travels a lot, right? Jupiter does like that overseas travel, that let's go on an adventure. And Helen's asking about the transits and the progressions. So we really, for this workshop, you just need your natal chart. And transits and progressions are kind of an advanced topic. Okay, so does everybody know where Jupiter is and what they can expect in 2023? This is where things are going to be growing. If you got it in your 1st house, you've got this larger than life persona. Jupiter's the guru. You might find yourself teaching. You might find yourself publishing. If you've got it in the 2nd house, you're going to really want to consider your finances and where you draw your self-worth from. Sometimes, a lot of times, we draw our self-worth from something outside of us. So this could be a year that you're willing to look inside for that sense of worth. 3rd house would be lots of data flowing, classes, communications, Jupiter in your 4th. Like this would be classes that blow your mind. These are upper level classes, right? If you've got Jupiter in the 4th, it's what I showed you about my personal chart. We talked about 5th, 6th, 7th would be relationship growth. It's a Jupiter in your 7th house. That could be a time when you feel like when you marry rich. It could be a time when you connect with somebody that is, I guess, helps you broaden your horizons, right? There's many interpretations of this. 8th house is like joint enterprises. So this is shared resources. And so this could be a time when you're finding that like it's important to work with an influencer, or that you're being an influencer. It's important to work in a band. It's important to work together and be cohesive. 9th house, higher education could be calling you. We talked about 10th house, that public recognition. 11th house would be friends, goals, dreams. And so Jupiter in your 11th house is a hugely beneficial year. Does anybody have Jupiter in their 11th house? Can we be friends this year? All right, Alicia, yes. Okay, Alicia's in the 7th. Saisha is in the 11th. Awesome. Y'all, that's going to be a good year for you. And awesome, yay. Okay, so that's a very good omen. Y'all, look at all these 11th houses. Amanda's, Nadine's, yes. And Amanda, go ahead if you want to type your question in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. I see that you've got your hand up. The last one is the 12th house, right? And so these are life's deepest moments. These are the hidden secrets where we find ourselves, where we're in a prison of our own making, where we have these deeper subconscious things, right? The subconscious always ruling our life, whether we think it is or not. So this could be a big year where you're taking things out of the subconscious and putting them into the conscious for awareness. David, all right, that's him. That's the 12th house. Awesome. So Jupiter, that's our notes on Jupiter. I'm going to move forward with Saturn. Okay, so this is the symbol of Pisces. Oh, she was just raising her hand that Jupiter was her note. Yes, okay, awesome. All right, so this is so Saturn is going from Aquarius into Pisces. And your Saturn mantra is that take the time it takes now so it takes less time later. There's plenty of time. Time is on my side. Saturn is this long-term, it's not futuristic, it's more like steady Eddie your way forward. Saturn is kind of like the military granddad that really has a plan, that sticks to it, that has this outline, and that has these hard boundaries. It can be experienced as limitation and fear, okay? It can be experienced. There's this whole book it's called like Saturn the Devil. So all of these astrologers of years gone by would look at the Saturn as like the devil, because it produces some fear because of the limitations that happen around Saturn. But limitations don't have to be a bad thing. They can be regulations. They can be parameters, right? We all need those healthy boundaries, stuff like that. So as Saturn moves from Aquarius into Pisces in March, it'll be there for 3 years. So the themes that are starting now for you coming up in March, so you have some time to reflect right now, like, okay, it's still in Aquarius, but as it moves into Pisces, there are going to be some broader collective themes, and they are going to affect you differently, specifically. So the broader collective theme of Saturn and Pisces would be things like regulations in the spiritual world, right? There's the Witchcraft Act of, was it 1635 or 1735, which is, who knows? But it's, the idea is that there were laws in place to protect against fraudulent mediumship or fraudulent psychic work, right? That's my line of work, so I that's what I'm thinking through. But there could be laws or boundaries and other things that are oriented to Pisces concepts. The last time Saturn was in this placement, it coincided with the band Nirvana. And I think about like the early 90s, and I think about like Nirvana and Pisces. In health, it's when we had widespread panic, right, about AIDS, about things that we couldn't see, that we didn't know. There were many, many lawsuits against cigarette companies, the class action lawsuits. if you consider, so pause here if you're in beginner brain, an advanced thing to consider is that Pisces, right? Pisces is always going to be in opposition, directly opposite anything in Virgo. So if you've got a ton of stuff in Virgo, Saturn at some point is going to be opposing all your Virgo stuff. Know what I mean? And that's worth knowing. That you could also look at it squaring, but specifically opposing. And in March, as Saturn moves into Pisces, I think we're going to see a lot of health issues. Now, are we going to experience them as us being sick? I'm not putting that out there. You don't put that out there. Don't worry about it. What I would say is we're probably going to get more data over Saturn things, long COVID. We're going to get more data over what has happened over a period of time. We're going to have more research and know what to do differently going forward. So this is the Pisces symbol. And I just was reminding myself to credit Sasha for these tidbits. So yay, thank you, Sasha. If you're here, I can't see you yet. But thank you, Sasha, for, I have this, her article is up. It's in our blog at wiseskiescollective.com. Saturn in Pisces, she wrote about it, and we talked about it in the predictions panel. So structure and discipline with your spiritual habits. If you guys listen to me for 5 minutes, you've heard me say meditate, right? Like you've heard me say meditate, sit in stillness, right? Clear your mind, separate yourself from the thinker. And this is an awesome way to work with Saturn and Pisces, is to regulate some of your spiritual disciplines, whatever they are. Meditate, because Pisces rules that super conscious dream state. So Saturn and Pisces in the first house, this would be maybe you're having a year where you're having to be more responsible. It could be a year where your wisdom comes into play. It could be a year where you're connecting with elders. It could be a year where you're having to take care of some elders. But responsibility and maturity are going to be signature themes. And so no matter what's going on, you might have some transits that are like, let your hair down, go wild and crazy. It's not going to be a boring 3 years. But over the next 3 years, you will see themes of that require you to be more responsible, to take a mature role. And how you handle that is your free will. Saturn in the second house in 2023, starting in March, right? This is a financial restructuring. So a lot of astrologers will not like Saturn in the second house because it's limitations and it's structure. It's like strict and structury. I had one of my best financial years ever when Saturn was in my second house. So don't be scared of Saturn in your second house. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose resources. It does mean that you're going to have to take an honest, mature approach to your finances. Okay. You can't just like assume it's all going to work out. It probably won't. Saturn more appreciates that. It's the archetype that would inspire you to appreciate a structured budget more than perhaps other years. Saturn in the third house. The third house rules our neighbors, our siblings. Like my neighbors have an Airbnb next door, and I call city code on them all the time because they're up at 3 a.m. partying. Right? So they might be going through a third house situation because they've got like the annoyed neighbor who's like, that's not the rules. Like, be quiet at 10. I don't know how I turned into that lady, but I am her. So Saturn in the third house could be like neighborhood HMO type rules coming into play. It could be that you need to have some important conversations about things with your siblings. And third house rules are classes, our learning, our communication. And so it could be that you signed up for a class and it didn't have the structure that you needed. And you got to get out of that. Like you just got to make some reassess and repivot into something that has better bones for you, that you can understand it better, right? Saturn in the fourth house. I like the Saturn placement too. I think it's unpopular to like this placement. But if you have Saturn in the fourth house, so this responsibility and stability at home, this means that your home values are going to be really important. If anything is out of integrity with your home values and the stability of your home, that will be revealed to you over the next 3 years. If you literally have a foundation that isn't solid, it will be shown to you, right? In your physical home, but also in your family dynamics. Okay, Saturn in the 5th house. Now, this would be like, think about the 5th house being creative. Think about the 5th house being chosen love, right? Not this family that we have to love, that we were born into, but this 5th house chosen love, things that we're really attracted to for pleasure. And then think about Saturn and Pisces in there, right? What could that look like? You know, what could that look like? In the 7th house, think about loving boundaries in your relationships. In the 8th, it is not favorable. This is kind of counterintuitive. It is actually not favorable to get married while Saturn is transiting your 7th house. But if you're looking at a relationship chart, it is favorable. If their Saturn is in your 7th house or vice versa, it's like, oh, that's somebody that's going to be around for a while. So depending on which astrology lore you follow, you know, there's just some food for thought. Just keep following your strategy and authority and don't take any of it too personally, right? The 8th house. Okay. So if we think about Saturn in that boundaries that create some fear or loss, you might notice that you are in some partnerships, that bonds that need to be broken. Okay. So, or made. But the idea here is with the 8th house, there's a joint venture. There's something that you're a band, like you're the drummer and they're the guitar player, and the guitar player quits and we've got to find a new guitar player, and insert that metaphor into something in your life, right? I have been in joint ventures that ended, that I would rather they've not, but they did. And so, you know, you roll with what life brings to you. The 9th house, we're looking at Saturn in Pisces in the 9th. So the 9th house is things like, it's naturally ruled by Jupiter. So you're thinking about like overseas travel, you're thinking about foreign culture, you're thinking about philosophy and deeper truths and the magic carpet ride, you know, so what are you really putting your faith into? And so Saturn with the 9th house, people be very careful over the next couple of years, because you could be very disillusioned or disenchanted if you start following a guru and put all your eggs in the guru basket and forgot that there was something even bigger, which was your higher power, your universe, your God, you know, your sense of direction, your light of your life. And I'm fascinated by this placement, and I'm really into watching all of the documentaries about cults, people leaving cults. Things like this, I think, are going to be very popular over the coming 3 years. So if you're into, if you are a producer or a writer, there's a topic that's going to stay hot, I think, for a while.
Tiffany?
Yes.
You skipped the 6th house.
I did. What do you think the 6th house should be?
Oh, you just didn't talk about it.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. The 6th, do you know anything about the 6th house?
No, I'm one of those girls who just don't have it yet, but making the mundane routine sacred. You didn't even mention it. I mean, mention it. Huh. And I know I'm not the only one that saw that, because there's a couple other people said you skipped.
Are people freaking out in the chat and I'm just talking about cults?
Oh, no, not at all. No, we're just talking about, you didn't mention making the mundane routine sacred. I mean, maybe that's all it is making the mundane routine sacred.
No, that's a good one to talk about. So 6th house in your handout rules routines, health, day-to-day, mundane. It rules our gardens. It rules our pets. It rules the things that we tend to, that we have to take care of. And so with the 6th house, with Saturn in the 6th house, you're going to have more routine. You're going to have a need for more routine, or you're going to be aware of wanting a routine. And that might fit with your chart, that might fit with your human design chart, that might not fit with your human design chart, but you might notice it in your awareness. It might make sense to experiment with it. You know, do I want to have some routine? How do I feel? Get some data on it. The making the mundane routine sacred would be sacred because of Pisces, right? And so I'm really glad that you stopped me on this one, because to me, I had this real shitty job one time, and it was I mean, it was miserable. It was a very small cubicle. I had my own office, which was this big, and there was no windows, and everybody went out to smoke, and I wasn't a smoker, so I didn't get any breaks, but everybody else got 8 breaks, and it was just this whole resentment factory I was building, you know what I mean? And in that office, the way that I made the mundane sacreds routine, right? The Saturn in the 6th house mojo, is that I made everything I did a spiritual work of art. It was like my warrior anger was rechanneled. And it's like every spreadsheet I did was like, for God, you know, it's like the most beautiful, epic, divine, juicy, colorful, the best font, the most delicious thing I could serve up to my creator, right? It was just a spreadsheet. But that's how I was making the mundane sacred. And I had to do that to change my mind, you know, because otherwise I would be in this prison thinking that life was happening to me, that I wasn't part of it, that I didn't agree to be there. And, you know, you just go down this whole spiral. So Saturn in your 6th house, Saturn rules our bones. It also rules dentistry, our teeth. It rules like things like chiropractic. So this might be a year with Saturn in the 6th where you're finding that you might want some chiropractic care or a restructuring of the scaffolding of your very body, or a restructuring of the scaffolding of your day, you know, your day-to-day thing. Like if you're like for me right now, I'll just be honest, I watch way too much of those documentaries at night. Like I need to repopulate my brain before I go directly to sleep. I don't need to be watching the Madoff and the cult things right before I go to sleep, right? I need to read my spiritual books, like all of these things that lift my life up. That would be a restructuring of my day, is to turn off the TV and read something positive before I go to bed. That would be how I would, another way you could work with that. So, where does that take us? Maybe, the 10th house. Can we do 10th house? Everybody feel like that? Okay. So I'm just trying to give some bullet points about that, right? So 10th house would be, it's in a lot of ways, it's your career, but not all of us work. Not all of us have a career that we like. Not all of us consider that, we don't want to identify with that. So if it's not your career, what it is, it's that 10th house, that very top of the chart, the top of the wheel. It's your gift to the world. It's what you're here to be of service to. It's how your special way of contributing to society. So don't get hung up when we say career, okay? So Saturn there would be aligning your professional identity or your gifts that you're giving the world with something, with your spiritual why. Like, why are you doing this? Why do I have an astrology company? It better be for a good spiritual reason, or I'm going to get bored real quick. I'm not going to last, right? Saturn is built to last. You're building something to last. So this could be a year when you have significant career shifts because it's just not what you wanted to do. I had another job with a publishing company, and they were really not good to the authors. And it was hard to have to restructure that, but I could not allow my identity to be part of what they were doing. It was not an ideal time for me to quit either. And I had to learn a lot of hard lessons. Sometimes Saturn will help you learn things the hard way. So I invite everybody to just use the intention, that time is on my side, right? That it's easy, not hard, whatever intentions you want to write. But Saturn brings a lot of gifts when it shifts into the new sign. And sometimes they're gifts that we don't want, right? Sometimes it's like what is that? Like Christmas fruit cake. It's like that. Like sometimes Saturn brings like the nut, the fruit, like the hard piece of thing that you don't want. Okay. 10th house. 11th house, I have said this a lot lately. It has come up in a lot of readings. Saturn in the 11th house, right? This would be your friends, your groups, your desires, your dreams, your goals, your hopes. And so Saturn in the 11th house, there's a big, important few years when you need to establish your spiritual friend groups. And I'm saying spiritual, I'm just saying like the people that you're lifers with, the people that you vibe with, the people that get you, that love you. And if you don't have those, this could be a year where you could maybe be aware of somebody that you do want to kind of take under your wing and be on a team with, be a little squad with. You're going to need those relationships, and they're going to need you, right? Same thing when you're working as a healer, right? The healing guides need you to be a channel to work through you, and you need them. And so it's kind of this collective, the 11th house, this collective energy that can work in your favor. And so Saturn kind of is like, it'll cut things out that aren't good for you too. So if you notice that there's a sense of loss around friends, and you're like, Tiffany, you said this was my year for spiritual best friends. Well, look at it this way, like, look at it like Shiva's coming through destroying, so that you're left with nothing, so that you have exactly what you need, the most pure form of yourself, to radiate it out and find that new group of friends. It's considered good fortune there as well. Basically, all 11th house stuff is considered very witchy, good fortune stuff. If you have a friend with Jupiter in their natal 11th, they are going to be good luck for you. And I have one of those, and she is. So know that. The 12th. So with Saturn there, this is a time, I know when Saturn was moving through my 12th house, I was the most depressed I'd ever been. I was very unaware at the time. I didn't have my spiritual tools, and I was drinking a lot. I was super unhealthy. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was the hardest time of my life in many ways, was when Saturn was in my 12th house. I don't necessarily want to relive that, but I wish I had the tools I have now so that I could see it differently. But I'm not saying like, wow, this is going to be a shitty 3 years for you guys. I just want you to know from my personal experience that you can be prone to melancholy, and you can watch your mind and be like, okay, thanks for that thought. Don't need that one right now. Am I thinking about something that doesn't matter? Am I trying to avoid truth and confrontation? Am I looking at my human design and going through my not self questions? Because you probably are going to have a lot of not self themes show up for you with Saturn in the 12th the next couple of years. And so that's why this meditation thing, I just get goosebumps and I get like hot and cold. It's so important to have that meditation practice, because it separates your stinking thinking from the core of who you are. And if Saturn's going through your 12th house, just trust me on that. Just meditate a couple times a day. The Insight Timer app is free. I love it. Lots of good sitar music on it. Okay, spiritual rebirth. Things that astrologers say, insert things astrologers say, right? Okay, I want to move on to the retrogrades. I want to look at the time, which I can't see because where my bar is. No idea. Can somebody chat me the time, pretty please? Okay. So, all right. So we're getting close. I want to get through some of the retrogrades here. So in 2023, Mars, we just had Mars go direct. Let's skip that one. Let's look at Mercury and Venus retrogrades. So Mercury is going to be retrograde in Earth signs this year. Your plans will probably change. So just be open and fluid to that happening. April 21st through May 14th, August 23rd through September 15th, and December 12th through January 1st. Now, I have given you these degrees. These are also in our calendar. They're also in our journal. So you can have the degrees, and now you have the power and the tool to go to your birth chart and be like, okay, so let's look at the April one, right? Let's look at the one now. Let's look at 8 degrees of Capricorn. Mercury is currently retrograde in 8 degrees of Capricorn. Some of you have the birth chart that says the degrees, and you're going to be able to easily see that because you know that there's 30 degrees. And some of you will have it where it doesn't say the degree, and that's a little bit harder, but you know that 8 degrees will be at the kind of the closer first edge of Capricorn. Okay, so once you've identified where that is, you can start to take all of the house themes and apply it to that. That's why Mercury retrograde isn't always miscommunications, car trouble, computer issues, things going hinky. It is those things because Mercury rules all those things, but you can be more specific with where it hits your chart. Can everybody find 8 degrees of Capricorn or the first wedge of Capricorn? And if so, do you have any experience with any experiences to share? Sorry, Camden, I'm just seeing that. I'm going to get back to your comment on that. With the house that Mercury retrograde is in. I just had to get a new car battery, right? So it's like, for me, it's very fresh. Is anybody having Mercury retrograde issues that they want to share with relation to where the house is? Is everybody favoring lunch or dinner somewhere and I'm missing out on what's happening? A sense of time. Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, cool. Mercury retrogrades, my Saturn in natal chart in 3rd house at 7. Okay, so Mercury retrograde, are you saying, Rachel, that Mercury retrograde is like hitting over your natal Saturn in your 3rd house? Okay. Okay. David had to change a car battery too. Yes, Rachel. 4th is the home, Bobby. Good job. A lot of repairs all of a sudden. Yes, that's the kind of example I'm looking for. Exactly that. That's perfect. Okay. 3rd house, 7th house. Good. So Anne with the 7th house, like those are relationships that need renegotiating, right? Sherry with the 3rd house in you're saying Cancer. I'm wondering if you're confused or if I'm confused. We're looking for 8 degrees of Capricorn. Oh, you were just saying you are a Cancer. 1st house. So Mercury retrograde in your 1st house, like going back over who you think you are, going back over your identity, going over how you shine in the world. Maybe you're getting a haircut or you're getting a new sweater or you're getting a new picture made, or you're like, people are like, don't do new stuff. It's not necessarily don't do new stuff, but you could be redoing some way that you're shining, right? Okay. And then I want to talk about Venus. We have a few more slides to get through, and I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. So I just want to shift to help you find Venus, which will be retrograde in Leo this summer. The main dates to worry about, don't worry, but the main dates to look at are this mid-July time through August. Like, I'm just saying, be careful about travel plans and expectations. In July and August, we're going to see a lot of celebrity divorce. We're going to see a lot of, I planned my whole life I saved to go to the Bahamas and this was my week and it's raining, right? That's been the example I've used. This is not a good time. Venus loves to be in Leo. Leo is the celebrity and they're ready for life and they like an adventure and they're here for the party. But retrograde, it's like Leo doesn't get what they want, and then it's like Venus doesn't get to play. It's not a safety issue, it's a buzzkill issue. This is not a good time to like make drastic changes to your appearance. It's like when you buy a car that's this color because you thought this color was cute, and then a week later you're like, this isn't me. Nope. So being aware of that, you're looking at your chart in Leo, because Venus is going to retrograde from 28 to 12 degrees of Leo. So all of Leo, you're going to have this feeling of going back over relationships, of old flames coming back up around, of something that really cost you money, right? Venus rules money. It could be unexpected expenses as having to do with that house. You might want to be conservative, Jupiter and Taurus, as you lead up to this point, right? So that you can have some money for surprise expenses or surprise trips that you want to whisk away with your person that you met in high school that's come back around all of a sudden. We're going to have to do relationship readings this summer, big time. Okay, the nodes are going to shift, and I want you to be able to find that. So Aries, they're going to move, the North node is going to move into Aries. And the biggest lesson with that is to thine own self be true. We're on a quest for our personal truth, our personal understanding, our unique way of operating, right? And so you guys see Leisha on the call with us, and she does our human design analysis. And so the best way that I know of to find your unique way of operating in the world is to get a human design foundation session with her, and then to come explore in our membership, she does a monthly call where you can really find your unique way of operating. Astrology is like the gateway metaphysical topic for human design. If you're into astrology, you're going to be into human design. So know that that's the best way I know of. In the world, it's a time when we see war. It's a time when people are more individuated, that you will see temporary separations out there, and it's for the purpose of being in your own aura and understanding what you want instead of what you want in context with the group. So I listed a bunch of hot topics. You've probably read this by now: growing discontent with leaders, martial arts, right? Things that are driven by Mars. Mars rules Aries. And so you want to have the intention that you're awakening your own self, your own spirit. So here, this is this upside down horseshoe, the one that's like the letter N kind of. Oh, it says it on there, North Node. That's what we're talking about. And here are the house themes. Sasha graciously inserted these in. I'm not going to go over them right now, but you will have them in this when I send it out to you. So if your North Node, if your North Node, if the North Node in Aries falls in your first house, right? There's going to be this battle between what's best for me versus what's best for the relationship. There's going to be some polarity dynamics going on because Aries is the self and the Libra, the opposite, is the partnership, balancing things out. So in a lot of ways, it's like learning through codependency. It's learning through the divine masculine, the divine feminine. It's learning through those things. I'm just going to stop there because I was about to go on a whole nother topic. This spring, I wanted you to have the degrees, right? So again, they're in here and they're in the digital calendar. Both of them are at wiseskiescollective.com. And you can see that 29 degrees of Aries, it's the very end of Aries. It's going to be kind of an interesting, frustrating. This is the eclipse to watch next year. We'll do a whole separate workshop on this eclipse, but know that, the ancients, the eclipses weren't good times of new beginnings and shiny new things. They were times of war. And it's happening in April, in the springtime. And so you might find a lot of fire in your soul in April. And so this is, again, not to scare you. This is not a buzzkill. It's to be like really aware of what is lighting your chart up and what house that's in. And hopefully you have an understanding now where 29 Aries is and where 14 Scorpio is for the spring eclipses. For the fall eclipses, these are the degrees. So in October, you're looking at 21 degrees of Libra and again at 5 degrees of Taurus. So very destabilizing energy around the eclipses. It can feel like you're living 100 days in 24 hours. And there are things that you can't predict, that you can't plan for. People come to me for these eclipses, like they want to know how the eclipse is going to affect them, and I can't predict it. And it's like, well, what kind of astrologer and psychic are you? It's like, well, it's not that. It's that which is unknown. And it's us being comfortable with that which is unknown. I myself have just revolutionary, revolting experiences happen around eclipses that I couldn't see coming, that I can only see in hindsight. So don't freak yourself out and try to plan towards this eclipse. Just be able to look back and be like, that was in my 7th house. That makes so much sense. Thank you for this awareness. Thank you for this awareness. And I'm not going to use it against myself. I'm going to use it for myself. I wanted to touch on transits. So we've just talked about certain planetary shifts that are happening. We call those ingresses. And a transit would be when one planet is making an aspect to another planet and they're in motion, right? And so there's a timing to it. So when you're looking at your digital calendar or your workbook and you're reading that this transit is happening on this date, and you'll notice that I went into detail to say, you might feel this a day in advance. You might feel this a month in advance. This is why I've written it like that, right? Jupiter can be felt all month. Jupiter transits, right? if you have a Jupiter transit coming on at June 30th, you're going to feel it all of June. Saturn, a little bit longer. Uranus, a little bit longer. Neptune and Pluto, a little bit longer. Mercury, Venus, a little bit shorter. Did I list those? I didn't list those. Mercury, Venus, and Mars, you're going to feel those a couple of days in advance, but not a month in advance. And that's why it's good to have an astrologer looking, because they can help you see, oh, this one you're going to feel like a crescendo. I describe it. It's getting louder and louder and louder. And then boom, on the day of the transit, it releases, it lifts. You don't feel it as much, it fades away. And sometimes those peaks are short, and sometimes those peaks are over months and even years. I wanted to mention that the outer planets and retrogrades mean that you're going to have several passes of the same transit. So if you're like, well, Mercury was just trying my Neptune and now it's happening again. Well, something in the retrograde cycle will cause it to happen a couple of times. And that's why it's not a mistake if it's in there a couple of times. Something that I think it's worth hanging out for to be here today about is that there's tough transits to be aware of next year. There's tough transits, and don't worry, there's lucky dates too. But the tough transits to be aware of is the first one is in March. Jupiter is going to conjunct Chiron in the skies. Okay, you're going to have your own transit list in the sky. Jupiter and half brother Chiron in the mythology are going to be right next to each other, brothers in arms, at 14 degrees of Aries. So you can see that Aries placements, there's a lot of energy in that this year. This is Jupiter, what magnifies, makes things bigger. Chiron, what is the wounded healer? So Jupiter is going to magnify some old wounds, wherever 14 degrees of Aries is in your chart. At a collective level, you know, you could look at this chart of the United States, you could look at the chart of Europe, you could look at, you know, many different things that you could look at. But overall, if you're looking in the media, you're going to see a temporary magnification of old wounds. This is like, oh, just kidding, Britney Spears' dad actually does own her. And you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we got to look at that again. And something like that, right? Not exactly. Bless you, Britney, and your dad. All the best to both of you. And May 17th, Jupiter squares Pluto. This is probably the worst thing of 2023. Okay. So if this is all we have to worry about, we're good. Because the last couple of years, we've had a lot more tough transits, which is hard to communicate when you're a happy person. But this is like, okay, Jupiter, the magnification in a very intense position to Pluto. Pluto is the wrecking ball, right? Pluto is the transformer. Pluto wipes the slate clean and is that rebirth, juicy Phoenix rising feeling. But I just feel like Jupiter's in Taurus at this point. And when I looked up the chart, I was like, whoa, everything's in Taurus. Like literally there's 6 planets in Taurus. So yes, Jupiter's squaring Pluto, but there's going to be a lot of Pluto squares happening in early spring. So in May, this can be when we're defaulting to our subconscious, like the controller of our destinies is subconscious. And so this can be a great time to make the subconscious conscious, of course. Pluto could be, I'm not going to say negative things. It's going to be a challenging time and it's temporary and we'll get through it. And July 11th last year is when the United States had their second Pluto return. And this was an amplification of events that kicked off that correlate to when Russia first invaded the Ukraine, right? And so what's happening in the skies is in this July of this year is that Mercury is going to oppose Pluto, right? And you can see those degrees there. So if you have 29 degrees, you're going to feel this more than the rest of us that don't. At that same juncture, that's when the nodes shift. And I'm like, I just think it's very combustible. So these are my 3 dates to be like, I'm not going to probably pick super important things to happen around that time. I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to be more kind. I'm going to have grace, and I'm going to be safe.
I have a quick question. Okay. Sorry to interject about the May 17th. Is that at 0 degrees Taurus and 0 degrees Aquarius because it's a square, not a conjunction, whereas the other 2 dates have essentially the same degree?
That's right, because this is a square. And so it's going to have the exact degrees. So the fixed signs are all going to square each other. So if you have 0 degrees of Leo or 0 degrees of Scorpio, if you have placements like planets in those fixed signs, this is also going to magnify louder for you, and it will feel more personal, right? Sometimes we have a big election and everybody freaks out, and you got that one friend that's like, what? Oh, well, we'll just keep living, right? But there's this mass confusion, and then there's a couple people that are like, I'm just going to keep living. It's like that. Maybe their placements weren't as direct. But yes, so these are squaring, and then the ones that are conjunct is because they're right next to each other. So they're in the same degree. Okay, let's look at the happy dates. There's many happy dates. These aren't the only happy dates. These are the ones I've plucked out because of Jupiter, and we had a big class focus on Jupiter. Jupiter brings good news, good times, good money, and benevolence, benefactors. March 2nd, Venus, right, rules love and money next to the benefactor, Jupiter. All of these are Aries placements, and then the little 3rd degree of Taurus, right? So very interesting year to be looking at where Aries is in your chart. On the 28th, Mercury rules the news, our classes, the way we learn and understand things, the way that we communicate information. This could be like our own learning styles. This could be group chats. Could be WhatsApp chats. This could be new Facebook groups that you want to get into. It's very chatty energy, but it's usually very good news. Like, yay, we're having a baby. Yay, we're getting married. Yay, like there's an announcement of some kind. You get a promotion, right? Like, that's the idea. April, yay, you won the lottery. One of our Wise Guys people is going to win the lottery this year. I promise. That's what I'm predicting for this year. So for April 11th, the sun is in what we call Cazimi. And Sasha also wrote a beautiful, brilliant article about what Cazimi means, which is just the heart of the sun. And so if you're astro curious about that, there's a link for that. On June 1st, Jupiter will then conjunct the North Node. Now, it's that one is still, it's like fate is pulling you forward. I think that's a good thing. You might not experience that the same way. You might not want to get ripped out of your comfortable, happy place and be pushed forward on your path. But I put it in the lucky dates, so you guys can play with that. What else can we look at? This is kind of, I'm at the wrapping up stage. So what else can we look at? You can take the transit list that I gave the newsletter, right? I gave you guys the Q1 transit list, and you can look at the calendar, you can look at the journal, and you can apply it to your chart, or we can help if you want to go to the services page. Sasha and I are both doing 2023 astrology readings. You can look at your personal transits through the apps, or by doing sessions, or you can create reports. Like, there's lots of free resources online. They're all going to have their own flavor. So some of you guys like Wise Guys because you like my flavor, you like the way that I'm talking from my experience. But there are other people, right, that are going to say the exact same information very, very differently from me. So just be aware of that if you're playing with different free reports and apps. Really great way to use the information you learned today is to look at the new moon and the moon phase family. I'm going to show you. Oh gosh, this is scary. This is personal. I'm going to show you my calendar, and let's see. So here's what it looks like in the calendar, right? That's what you would click on and you'd be able to find something. And I was thinking, okay, look, here's a good one, because it'll say, so the phases of the moon will say the degree. So you could be looking at the new moon or the last quarter moon, and it'll tell you it's in 24 degrees of Libra. This is harvest time, something that started 2.5 years ago, and this moon family will be wrapping up at this moment, paying something off, right? Like car I bought 2.5 years ago, I'm in the process of paying off. So it actually does add up for me. But I just wanted to briefly show you that. What else can I tell you about? February 2nd, Leisha is going to do partnership analysis with human design. Thank you, Leisha. I love that. I can't wait to take your class. Our classes are free for members. If you're not a member yet, please come check it out. If you need help, just let me know. Email us at hello@wiseskiescollective.com. We're having dream analysis on February 7th with Victoria. I just recorded a podcast with her so you can get her flavor and see, just feel into that and see if you like what she's got to share. She has some very interesting sleep science information that she brought to the table. And I'm really excited about that too. March 2nd, we're doing parenting in human design. And then March 7th, I'm going to teach you how to read pictures with your psychic mind. So everybody can do this. You don't need any experience. You don't need any background. We can work with you wherever you are, from beginner all the way to advanced. If this is fun for you and you want me to do a Mercury specific workshop in February, I was kind of eyeballing February 18th. I was wondering if Saturdays were better for people. In the membership, we do our human design meetups on the first Thursdays at noon, and the psychic awareness meetups are the first Tuesdays at 6 p.m. These are central times. And so I'm just wondering if Saturday, you're like, throw in a Saturday sometimes. And if this was successful, if you want to look specifically at Mercury, why we would want to look at Mercury would be, we could plan out, like I'll map out times when I want to write my books, or times when I want to plan product launches, or times when I want to be in communication about something. Mercury transits are very helpful for business, whether you own a business or you work for a business or you have the business of your household, right? It's that one that we can use to plan out our learning, map out times that might be more beneficial for us to learn. And so I guess I'll just pull up the chat and see what you guys said. So Saturdays, you guys, some of you guys like, this is exciting. Okay. Yes, lots of thank yous. Thank you for making my day and blessing me so much. Let's get out of this and look at some hot takes, your favorite part. So anybody that wanted to be complete, this is the end of the material I was going to present today. And I'm just going to stop my share. Thanks for your patience. There we go. We're back. So hot takes. Who has a picture of their chart they can put in the chat? You're like, none of us. We're just looking at it on paper. We can't do it. I didn't know that was going to be a thing. I want to do it. Now I'm not ready. Yeah. So you could just screenshot. If you're on your phone, you could screenshot your thing, or you could like shared in a file in the meeting. So we're at the, oh, look at you. Okay. Look, Leisha knew how to do it. Let's download her. Click to open. Boom. Okay, so I've got my first one. I'm going to try to do a couple for you guys. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so we've got Leisha's chart. We know that Jupiter is going to be in Taurus, so it's going to be, so Leisha this year, I know you guys can see my background and it's not what we want. This year would be a good time for you to look for luck, abundance, wealth in shared property, right? So this could be a time when you like buy community property. I want to be your friend on the community property if you do that, because I think you're awesome. So the eighth house would also be things like when the family owns something and there needs to be discretion with it, right? There needs to be discretion with who owns what percentage, who owns what part. This would be a good thing to look at towards the middle to end of summer, early fall, and then Jupiter will move on into your 9th house. And I know that you are a 1-3 profile, so I know that you love to study and take notes and to be in your mastery. And so this might be a time when you're like, okay, like this would be a good, by the end of this year, you might have a new product, like a human design calendar. You might have a new book. Leisha's my friend, obviously, and I want to just tell you that I've been asking her to write Unleashed. So the Unleashed book, like something like that might flow from you this this year. You're in your mastery, right? With Jupiter in your 9th house. And so there aren't really any higher level classes. Like, you are the guru at this point. And so you might be presenting in a way, you might be invited to present in a way as a projector that feels really authentic for you. And it could be like your master class on honeysuckle, right? Like whatever you were teaching, right? So that's where Jupiter is in your chart. If we look at the Saturn placement, right? This Saturn placement would be over here, moving from, the people are in my screen. The Saturn placement, so it's moving out of Aquarius and into, oh, this is great for you, actually. I really like a 6th house Saturn, because it brings some stability into that routine. It's that one we talked about, bringing the sacred into the mundane, which you're really good at, bringing magic into everything that you do, all of the little special touches. It's going to be a more stabilizing year. It's not going to be chaotic where I'm over here and then I'm over here and then I'm over here. It's going to be like we're kind of into a rhythm, and it'll last about 3 years and then it'll change, and that's good. So you can kind of feel the pace of it. Something that I could do if we had a little more time, I would pop her data in and I would show you a full transit list. But since we can see, a lot of you guys, I bet, used astro.com, you can also see these are her aspects, right? So the sun was conjunct Mercury at the time that she was born. The sun was right next to both Mercury and Venus. This makes her beautiful. This makes her thoughtful. This makes her considerate. This makes her innately a way, right? A certain way. This is her birth chart. But when we're looking at the transits on top of it, it just interprets the time of her life. Does that help a little bit? Does that make sense? Do you want to unmute and let me know if that resonates?
I love that. Thank you so much. Very, very helpful, because I'm kind of a new astrology person, so it helped to like get the exact examples. I appreciate it a lot.
Yay. Okay, awesome. Let me look in the chat, and I got is it Janice Reese? Let's look at hers. Oh, can you guys see Janice now? Everybody? Yes. Okay, thanks. I'm trying to get, thanks for your patience. I'm just trying to move the chat so I can see the picture too. Gosh. What I'm going to do now that we're going into kind of a more public space, I'm going to stop the recording from this training so that everything else moving forward will be private. Okay. You can do it. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody that was here for the training. Thank you so much. And please head over to wiseskiescollective.com for your calendar, journal, or sessions or membership. We would love, love, love to have you in this community. And I'm so glad you took some time to learn about your astrology today. Okay.